the victory hour. I think that is the most powerful thing anyone can do if they're serious about upgrading their creativity, productivity, prosperity, and impact.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Come and Clean Podcast. This is your host, 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏𝗧. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for supporting us each and every week. Before we get started, I want to invite you to please go to my site, 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 It is going to be available within the next 90 days. Thank you so much for doing so in advance. And now, our guest is none other than the world's top expert on elite performance. He is a go-to guy to billionaires, world elite, and superstars. And he's the author of some of my favorite books that includes The Leader Who Had No Title, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and of course, my personal favorite, The 5 a.m. Club. Thank you so much, and welcome our guest, Mr. Robin Sharma. Hello, Robin, and welcome to Come and Clean Podcast. Thank you for being with us today. You know,
Peter,
Robin,
it's a pleasure.
Thank you. I have followed you for a long time, and I have a lot of respect, love, and admiration for you. You are poetic, and you're an incredible influence throughout the world. From being the go-to person to billionaires, the worldwide elite, and superstars. Thank you for being with us today.
It's really a pleasure. And, you know, your whole story and everything you're doing is very inspiring to me. So as I mentioned, how could I not accept this invitation? Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. You know, Robin, I want to start with something. You're an elite performers expert, but there was something that caught my attention about you the other day that really I want to key on today, because I think that the times that we're living on today, they're trying times for a lot of people across the world. And we have a difficult time a lot of times believing in ourselves. But you talked about self-love. Where does self-love come in for an elite performer?
Well, you know, I got to tell you, I've done so many podcasts. No one's ever started like that. And I love it because I think it's really the foundation. I think in many ways we have this ecosystem, Peter, where we get this negative messaging. You know, it starts with our parents. They're well-intentioned, but we pick up their limiting beliefs, and then it goes to school, and then the media and the world around us. And then we end up with this way of seeing the world through a stained glass window, to use Joseph Campbell's metaphor, which is we don't see reality. We see it through all this toxicity and all this fear and all this doubt that we pick up. And I think the real reason we don't see who we are and own our potential and change the world in our own way is because we don't believe in ourselves. And underneath that layer of disbelief is, as you're suggesting, it's self-loathing. And that's why, you know, I really believe the job of transformation is simply self-remembering. So as we learn I think the doorway into self-love is self-care. And I don't mean self-care, you know, it's only meditating and praying. Self-care is making sure that people don't walk all over you. Making sure that if someone is mistreating you, you elegantly and respectfully stand up. Self-love, self-care happens when we follow our joy and do the things that we think are amazing for us and that set our soul aflight, even if the whole world thinks we're crazy. And so the more we can care for ourselves and take really good care of ourselves, the more we love ourselves. And with greater self-love, we handcraft the kinds of lives that make us proud at the end.
Absolutely. And you actually talked about the 4 truths of personal growth or self-love, which you described them as being your specialness, doing the hard things, going to the woods, and the more people you help, the more you love. So tell us about each one of those, and how do we apply those in our daily lives, Robin?
Sure. Well, you know, I'll say going to the woods, that's literal, and it's also a metaphor. I think literally, you know, yesterday, I'm working on a new book right now. So I finished actually the last chapter. And I just felt so exhausted and so depleted. And I headed out to the woods, you know, just where I ground and come back to life. But I think metaphorically, this is a noisy world right now, and it's a very troubled world right now, and it's a scary world right now, and there's a lot of suffering. And so I think we have to work on ourselves so our access of power comes from within versus from the outer world. And so the metaphor of going to the woods is basically being in the world but not of the world, and being in the wilderness of sorts. One of the other techniques or truths of self-love is helping other people. And it sounds so obvious, but I think it's practiced in the breach right now. Yes. You know, a lot of people it's all about greed and themselves, and we're living very much in a culture of entitlement. And I think we have to press the pause button. And I think that's one of the blessings of what we're going through. We're slowing down.
Absolutely. I believe that the 2020 has given us an opportunity to pause and be able to reconstruct ourselves, reevaluate ourselves, take a self-inventory and realize the things that are working, the things that are not working. So it's been an incredible time for me personally to be able to apply the things that many of our great leaders have taught us, but applying them differently and shifting and changing them and pivot them around them and seeing what works and what doesn't work and discarding the things that do not work. Robin, that takes me right back to your book, one of my favorite books, which I happen to have right here, The 5 a.m. Club. I love the way, so poetically, the way you share that story and the way you took us there. But let's talk about the 5 a.m. Club. And I'm going to ask you a question that you've probably been asked before, but what is the 5 a.m. Club for the audience that do not know what it is? And what did you do before the 5 a.m. Club?
What was the second part of the question, Peter?
What did you do as far as your rituals before the 5 a.m. Club?
Sure. So the 5 a.m. Club is a method I've been teaching for over 20 years. I've taught it to a lot of, the clients that I work with, the NBA athletes, the film stars, the titans of industry, because I think, your morning routine is the mother of all habits. If you can do one thing to upgrade every other habit, it's called a keystone habit, the one habit that lifts every other habit, it's getting up before the sun. And so if you can, and then in the book, there's the 20-20-20 formula, which is really a prescription for starting your days, not only with incredible focus, heightened productivity, but also a lot of soulfulness, because success without soul is a very empty victory. So yeah, that's the 5 a.m. Club. It's essentially training yourself for a period of 66 days, which according to the research of University College London, 66 days is approximately the time it takes a human being to wire in any new habit to the point of automaticity, where it actually becomes easier to get up at 5 a.m. or do the new habit than not to do the new habit. Human beings say, well, I can't get up at 5 a.m. I can't rise before the sun. Too many of us want the rewards of world class, but we're not willing to invest in the requirements of world class. So what I would say to anyone is give yourself 66 days and realize how powerful you are. The human brain has this phenomenon of neuroplasticity. We're meant for change. We all can join the 5 a.m. Club. The question is, are we willing to exercise our human power to install that habit, which will change the life? What do you do before 5 a.m.? Well, you're sleeping, until 4:45, and that's your runway. You get up, you do what you need to do, and then 5 o'clock, you start the 20-20-20 formula. I get very detailed into it in the book, but if you want, I can get into it at a high level now.
Yes, please, absolutely.
Sure. So the 20-20-20 formula is essentially 5 to 5:20. You move, and why would you move? Because that's going to release. You're going to sweat. If you're skipping, spinning, running. And by the way, I have to say, Nelson Mandela, while he was in Robben Island for 18 years in this little prison cell, he'd get up at 5 a.m. every day and he'd do push-ups and he'd run on the spot.
Wow.
So if he could do it, I don't think we have a lot of excuses. Anyway, wow. First pocket of the 20-20-20 formula, 5 to 5:20, you want to sweat. It'll release BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's not only the elite athletes that have this, we all have this. BDNF will increase neurogenesis. It will increase your brain's processing ability. You'll, through your exercise, you'll release dopamine, which will give you more inspiration. We all need that right now. It'll release serotonin, which makes you feel better. And it'll release norepinephrine through exercising in that first 20-minute pocket, which gives you more focus. Second pocket of the 20-20-20 formula, 5-20 to 5-40, you reflect in a world where we don't really reflect a lot. So that way you live your day much more deliberately, much more intently. And reflection could mean you journal, you pray, you meditate, or you simply sit in solitude and reflect on how you're living, the values you want to live by, what you need to improve, and what you want your life to stand for. Then you go out in the world, you're far more clear, and clarity precedes mastery. And then the final pocket is 5:40 to 6 o'clock. This is where you grow. I mean, growing is the gateway into world class, isn't it? So you can listen to a podcast like yours, Peter. You can read a book. I love reading. You know, I encourage everyone, read a terrestrial book, an old school book, 1 hour every day, because it'll deepen you as a thinker. So you read, you listen to a podcast, listen to an audiobook. Now it's 6 o'clock. You've calibrated your mindset. You've worked on your heart set, that interior empire I talk about in the book. You've activated and optimized your health set, your physical dimension, so you have energy, and you've worked on your soul set, so you've connected to your higher power.
Now, let me ask you a question, Robin. Why 5 o'clock? Why not 6 o'clock? Why not 7 o'clock? Why not 4 o'clock? Why 5 o'clock?
Well, you know, I think there's a reason, Peter, why the great sages, the great seers, a lot of the great poets, a lot of the great business builders, they all rose before the sun. 6 o'clock is fine. It's better than 8 o'clock to rise. But 5 a.m. is the time of greatest quietude in this age of dramatic distraction. The sages of India actually say there's something about the energy in the air between 4 and 6. And I think there's some truth to it. There's an energy. It's probably because of the tide and the moon. But, you know, you get up at 5 a.m., there's a stillness in the air that I've never found at any other time of the day. Also, a relatively recent scientific finding is the brain has a mechanism that washes itself. And so we wake up at 5 a.m., the brain has washed itself. We've rested, so we've sort of released the residue of the day before. So what I'm suggesting is we've purified ourselves. And so at 5 a.m., I think prayer is deeper. Autosuggestion is more influential. Reading a holy book or a great autobiography impacts us and influences us more. Writing in a journal has more traction and stickiness. I just think 5 to 6 a.m., what I call in the 5 a.m. club, the victory hour. I think that is the most powerful thing anyone can do if they're serious about upgrading their creativity, productivity, prosperity, and impact.
And I completely agree with you, Robin. I've been doing this for many, many years. I didn't know I was doing the 5 o'clock, the 5 a.m. club. I didn't know that I was doing that. I knew for a long time that, you know, coming from a very humble beginnings, you know, I was taught to get up early, you know, and you get up, but very early on, I didn't have the rituals or the disciplines that enabled me to have the clarity and the peace and the stillness within me. You know, I would get up in a rush, do a quick run, head out to the office. I was taught to believe by my father, in others, and the multiple layers, generational layers of belief that I inherited, that you work hard and that's the only way you succeed. But there was almost a chaotic cycle of life that I was involved in. You know, I would drive fast. I would pass a red light. I would speed. There was no stillness within me, which I noticed after I started listening to people like yourself, Robin, to people like Tony Robbins, and to other great motivational, influential speakers, that I started picking up those habits, and I saw and I realized the stillness in my life. I realized the importance of being able to develop certain rituals and certain disciplines. And of course, I had applied them throughout my life. And now I live a very peaceful, quiet, productive life that gives me not only a sense of stillness and a sense of peace, but allows my life to go almost into a state of flow. And that's what I realized. And I'm comparing your 5 a.m. club to I just had Steven Kotler on the podcast the other day, and he talks about the state of flow. And it's the same thing. It's the same disciplines over and over and over and over. Why is it for us human beings that it is so difficult for us to believe that something so simple can give us the success, the peace, the tranquility that we need?
Well, I think it's because we have been schooled in becoming impossibilitarians. We have been trained to lose the awe and wonder that is our natural state. We've been conditioned to forget that we're really made of stardust. And I'm not saying that to be inspirational. You look at the science. I mean, in the 5 a.m. club, I actually deconstruct flow. And I don't know if you've heard the term, probably knowing you have, Peter, but it's called transient hypofrontality.
Yes.
And transient hypofrontality, transient is short, of course. Hypo means smaller, frontality. Transient hypofrontality is the brain's phenomenon where the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of reasoning, actually shuts down for a short period of time. So we get out of that monkey mind, we get out of that self-editor where we're going, what's happening, that fight, flight, freeze response, where there's no magic, there's no flow in that. And we actually go deeper and we release this pharmacy of mastery, and our brainwaves actually slow down from beta to alpha, even down to theta. And the great thing is we all have this mechanism in our brain. We all can live in flow state. A lot of the 5 a.m. club teaches, how do you live in flow? The thing is, we become addicts. You talk about rushing through the light and rushing. Well, how many people are rushing through their lives?
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go back to an incredible quote by French mathematician Blaise Pascal. And he said, most of a person's miseries derive from their inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And so I think fundamentally, we're going to circle back to that self-love thing. Most of us hate ourselves because we've betrayed ourselves. We've betrayed our calling. We've betrayed our potential. We've betrayed our promise. We've become cyber zombies, following the crowd, wearing clothes to show off and get likes. A lot of people. It's a generalization. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just trying to report. And that kind of way of living, dishonoring your talents by spending all your time watching TV or playing with your phone, dishonoring your calling by saying, yeah, I want to go live in Colombia, or I want to go live in Japan, and I want to be an artist, but I need to do this to please my parents or the world around me. That dishonors us. We have these values. We all want to be kind. We all want to be honest. We all want to be selfless. We all want to be giving, but we betray those values. And the more we do that, we develop this self-hatred and we forget our stardust, and that causes us to run from ourselves. And so we get home, we can't be alone. We've got to be like this. We always have to be escaping. So that's why I think we avoid the flow state. And then you mentioned another thing, which is, I think you're very wise to live your life in a calm, peaceful way. Less is actually more. There's a model in the 5 a.m. club, the twin cycles of elite performance. The best artists, the best titans, the best entrepreneurs, the best athletes, they don't work 24/7. That's only a recipe to exhaust your assets of genius. The way to exponential productivity is you work really hard for a short period of time. I call it the 5 great hours rule. 5 incredible hours during the day. Sweaty, undistracted, incendiary hours. And then after that, you go take a nap, you go mountain bike, you go read, and the next day you do the same thing. So this idea where we need to hustle and grind and exhaust ourselves as badges of honor, I think I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's good for our soul, but I don't think it's the best way to be productive, because we're so exhausted, we're not pushing our masterwork into the world.
Robin, what comes first? Self-love or the 5 a.m. club? Or are they intertwined? Do you find one when you find the other?
Well, I think at our core, we already have self-love. It's just, that's why I really believe personal transformation isn't about transformation. It's about remembering ourselves. We already, everything we want, we already have. We've just forgotten who we are.
Absolutely. We keep running away from ourselves into ourselves.
That's exactly right. The real enemy is not without, it's within.
Yes.
Right? So I think we are self-love. We've just forgotten, and then we've covered it up with all these beliefs. But it's not only mindset, it's those 3 other interior empires I introduced in the book: heart set, health set, and soul set. And that's very important, because we're not just our psychology. Human beings are not just our minds. We've got the second interior empire, our hearts, our emotionality after our psychology, and our physicality and our spirituality. And I think if you really want to live a soaring life, productive life, as well as a peaceful life, all 4 interior empires are necessary to work on. So is it 5 a.m. or self-love? I think our base already is self-love. I think we all need a ritual or a practice to help us remember self-love. You look at an NBA athlete, they have the talent, but they have to maximize the talent or optimize the talent. So they practice. And that's what materializes their talent, if that makes sense. We already are self-love. We've been traumatized through what I call macro or micro trauma to forget our self-love. The 5 a.m. club and the victory hour and the 20-20-20 formula is the practice that will reintroduce you to who you are, which is self-love, great creativity, energy, vitality, and heroism.
So it is in the still of the morning, it is in the still of ourselves that we find ourselves and we fall in self-love, basically what you're saying.
I think so. I think you're right. I think if we could only stop running from ourselves,
right,
and being too of the world, and start to open the gateway, not into the garden in the backyard, but into our minds, our hearts, our souls, we would discover a universe that is so much brighter, blissful, enchanting, inspirational than even the most beautiful painting in the outer world. And by the way, I have to ask you about the painting behind you. Is that yours, or incredible?
It is my painting. It's Oscar Hernandez. It's a Cuba-born artist out of Miami, and I acquired that painting, because it kind of reminds me of me, believe it or not. Is a aging gentleman that still wants to have fun in life. That still wants to skateboard, that still wants to paint, that still wants to be creative, but I want to be free. I want to be free from my demons. I want to be free from the entanglements, the historical social conditioning that I inherited. And you know my story. And as it took a lot of peeling of the onion to be able to remove that and feel like that painting. And today I do.
Let me ask you, if I may, Peter.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that every day? Do you feel that peace every day?
No, I don't. And it's a very
Neither do I.
It's a very good question, Robin, because you said it a minute ago. It's something that we have to continuously do. We have to continue working on it. I think self-love, happiness, joy, freedom, it's a muscle. It's a muscle that we have to practice every day. And I think we zero ourselves out the minute that we stop doing the practices. I know when I'm out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
You know when I'm out of balance? When I'm not doing my rituals, when I'm not into prayer, when I'm not into meditation, when I'm not practicing my 5 a.m. club, rituals. I like to call them rituals because I think a ritual is something that you do instinctively without feeling any effort, any sacrifice of doing it. You enjoy what you do. I did it this morning, and I went a little bit deeper because I wanted to have clarity to be able to have this conversation with you. Okay. So of course, no, I don't have that every day, but I have to continuously be working at it. But I can tell you that I have it more often than not.
Yeah, you're very honest. I appreciate the truthfulness, and I would say the same thing. I would say I'm a work in progress. Some days are amazing, and some days the lifting is a little heavier.
Sure.
But I've come so much farther. I have a long way to go, but I've come so much farther than I was 20 years ago. And I think that's the journey. I believe every day we work on ourselves, there is a payoff, whether it's a visible payoff or an unseen payoff.
Sure.
Right? Oliver Wendell Holmes, a mind once exposed to a new idea never regains its original dimensions. One new idea creates a micro improvement in our mind or our heart, our body, or our spirit. And it's so small we can't see it. And that's why too many people give up. Consistency is the mother of mastery. It's not what you do once a year that's important, it's what you do every single morning. So we can't see it, and often we think we're not improving, but slow and steady does win the race. And I think there's a lot of attractions in the world, business building and external things and accumulating, but I think the greatest journey a human being could ever be on is the journey into exploring what they're made of. Remembering their gifts and their talents, discovering their truest virtues and how they want to live a life. I mean, I read a lot of the Stoic philosophers, especially Marcus Aurelius in the Meditations. And it just, every time I read, he reminds me that life is such a very short ride. And even the great kings who worried so much about monuments being made after them are now just dust. And so I think that always gives me a great sense of clarity about what's most important, because we all get confused, or I'll speak for myself. It's easy to get confused and off track. And I think this journey that you and I are speaking of about remembering who we are, it's the greatest journey that a human being could ever be on.
Absolutely. And, to your point about the one thing that I have admired and respected about you is that poetic sense of being, that you have an old world soul. You often refers to great philosophers and great historians. And even when you share, even when you speak on your coaching, you speak poetically, and you reference a lot of people in history, which almost paints a story. And I think it's in that story that we evolve, that we change, because we are able to we personalize that individual that we're describing, right? And that allows us to escape from ourselves and into that story. And it also gives us a reality check, because it tells us, well, I am this, but I'm not that. Does that make sense?
Well, it sure does make sense. And I think as human beings and as a human species, we've learned wisdom through stories. And we've learned wisdom through being introduced to heroism. And I think what the planet lacks right now is we need more pure heroes. Peter, my life changed about 4 years ago when I stood in Nelson Mandela's prison cell. I took the ferry over from Cape Town. I, got on the little bus. I went to the section of the prison where he was held with other political prisoners. I walked down the corridor, with that sort of white, austere institutional lighting, made the corner and walked into his prison cell. And all you could see was a desk and a woolen blanket on the floor, not even a bed. And he spent 18 years of 27 years of confinement in that little tiny prison cell. He even said his greatest regret was when his eldest son died in a car accident. The warden would not allow him to leave the prison to attend his son's prison, right? And yet, his son's funeral. And yet, when he was released, and eventually became the president of South Africa. He actually tracked down the prosecutor who wanted the death sentence for him, took him out to dinner. And the prison guard who watched over him all those years was sitting in near the front row at his inauguration. And he was asked, "Why would you do that?" And he said, "If I didn't do that, I'd still be in prison." And I really do think that, we need more heroes like that, because heroes and stories remind us of the pure things I think we're all longing for. I think we all want more love in the world right now. I think we all want more decency. I think we all want less superficiality. I think we all want more heavyweight conversations, and I think with the right heroes, we're going to get back there. I think right now, a lot of what's going on in the world is just, I think we need the rug to be pulled out from under us as human beings for us to wake up again.
I completely agree with you, but in that process, there's a lot of collateral damage being done. The underground effects of Corona, the underground effects of what's happening behind doors when we are being confined to our homes. Me coming from being a victim of child abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, a dysfunctional behavior, a dysfunctional environment. Alcohol use and addiction is up 30%. There's just so much collateral damage. What can we tell those families that they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel today? What can we tell them, Robin, to encourage them that this too shall pass? I know it's a lot easier for us to say it because we have conditioned ourselves over the years to be able to deal with adversity. But there's a lot of people that this is their first major adversity. This is their first major challenge. They may have been in a continuous cycle of survival, but this is a shockwave. This is a wave of despair. This is a wave of desperation. What would be the words that you could tell them today, Robin, that would help them have some kind of hope or that they will be light at the end of the tunnel?
Peter, if someone isn't interested in hearing what I have to say, I wouldn't say anything. I don't know if I expressed that clearly. What I mean to say is, if someone doesn't want to hear the philosophy of the opportunities that adversity brings, then I wouldn't say anything to them. If someone comes to me or comes to us and says, "How can we make sense of this? I'm suffering," then I would say, those who suffer the most grow the best. I've suffered a lot in my life as well. And I wouldn't wish what I've gone through on anyone, but I wouldn't give up my suffering for anything, because it's made me who I am. My suffering has introduced me to spirituality. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about genuinely understanding yourself and your higher power. Suffering has cracked my ego. Suffering has made me so much more creative. Suffering has given me much more of a sense of self versus, I don't really need to worry too much about my critics or haters, because, my relationship with myself has become stronger. So I think suffering is a great purification process. And hardship is how we grow. That's how much life loves us. I think, metaphysically speaking, life loves us so much, it's given us this incredible hardship, because it's tough seas make strong sailors. Hard times make great heroes. Nelson Mandela wouldn't be Nelson Mandela but for his suffering. Rosa Parks wouldn't be Rosa Parks, or Martin Luther King Jr. Last night I just watched Radioactive, Madame Curie. She was this scientist who discovered radium, and she just went through so much suffering, but it made her who she is. And so I'd say, It's counterintuitive, but if we're suffering a lot, at some level, try to stay in the suffering, because a bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul. And so the ego says, oh, this is a bad time. We can't go to restaurants, etc. And yes, there's real suffering. People are dying, massive unemployment. You know, I didn't know that statistic about alcoholism and addiction. There's real suffering. We're all suffering through the collective trauma we're going through. And yet we have an egoic self and a heroic self. And our heroic self is that bastion and fortress of truth within us. And the truthful, wisest self knows we're being taken to a better place. There's nothing but hope on the other side of this. Now, I think if you wanted me to go macro, I think our species is going through an incredible revolution, transformation. All of us, everything that we weren't looking at emotionally, spiritually, even our belief systems, everything's being activated. So we have a choice. We can say, oh, this is a bad time, let me rush out, or we can use and leverage everything that's going on and making us feel so shaken, and look at our shakenness and heal it. So when we come out of this, we're fundamentally transformed.
Absolutely agree, Robin. The weather changes, right? Nature changes constantly. It's evolving, it's changing, it's growing. It sheds,
Yes.
you know, the trees shed their leaves. So it's a constant process of growth and transformation. And as if we were students of nature, we would learn that, right? We would appreciate that. So I love what you just finished, Sharon. Thank you so much for that. Tell me a little bit more about the four interior empires, and how do we balance those on a daily basis? Is that also a balance of the four interiors through the 5 a.m. club, or is that something that we do separately?
Well, I think the four interior empires, what readers of the 5 a.m. club have told me is that it's a completely breakthrough concept for them. And the four interior empires are essentially this. There's the four of them, and there's mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. We know a lot about mindset. There's many very, very good mindset gurus in the world. And what many of them say is mindset is everything. They say that once you change your mindset, you'll change your life and your performance and your productivity. With great respect, I would say there's actually more to the personal mastery equation, because our mindset is our psychology. And Peter, I think you'd agree with me. A human being is more than a psychology.
Absolutely.
Do we not have hearts?
Yes.
Do we not feel?
Yes.
Do we not feel shame, disappointment, anger, sorrow? Do we not feel joy, wonder, awe, gratitude?
Yes.
So there's mindset, which is our psychology, but I've also introduced this term heart set, which is your emotionality. But it's not just those two. We also have physical dimensions, our bodies. That's our health set. And then we have spiritual lives. We have souls. We have a connection to a higher power. We have an internal hero that is our wisdom and our bravery. And that's our soul set. Four interior empires: mindset, heart set, health set, soul set. And I believe, in my philosophy, that it's only when you work on those four interior empires. I think the best time to do it is from 5 to 6 every morning while the rest of the world is asleep. And the method I talked about in the book, the 20-20-20 formula, that actually touches and helps you upgrade each of those four interior empires, so that you're increasing your mindset, you're purifying your heart set. And that's really important, because you can know all the productivity strategies. You can architect a great life, set you up for maximum performance. But as 𝗔𝗩𝗔𝗕𝗏𝗏, the Zen master, said, wherever you go, there you are. And I think this is an incredibly important point. People read all these books, they learn all these outer strategies, and then they wonder why they don't get up at 5 a.m., why they sabotage themselves, why they start making some money and then spend it all, why they finally find the love of their lives and give it up, while they finally reach their Mount Everest and start drinking too much or falling into all these addictions. It's because they've worked on their outer life, but they still are full of shame or anger or disappointment, or, as you said, self-hatred. And that, I think, is why the 4 Interior Empires is so powerful. Clean out yourself, work on yourself, and then your outer life, your income and your impact always follows your self-identity. So work on your self-identity.
Robin, what are you working on today?
Well, thanks for asking. I am, as I shared, I finished this round of my new book yesterday. And I started it 11 months ago. So the whole year has been like, I've been grounded. Usually I travel a lot for keynote presentations. And plus I love being in interesting places because it fuels my inspiration. But I've been grounded like all of us. And the benefit to that has been, it's allowed me a monomaniacal focus on this new book. And so I think this is probably my 15th round on the book. And, you know, yeah, I just spent the past 2.5 weeks revising the whole thing again, and like just another heavyweight edit. But I want this to be just, you know, I want this, my intention, I think intentions are very creative and important. I want this new book to be a piece of magic, you know, so every line I'm calibrating, every time I get an insight, I just try to put it in I want it to be something really beautiful for people. So that's really consumed me and inspired me and exhausted me this year. But I think I'm probably about 6 weeks away from handing the book to HarperCollins and saying, it's off my plate.
So when does it come out? Do we have a release date yet?
Sometime in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not like the 5 AM Club is, as you know, it's a story about these 4 eclectic characters. And when I say eclectic, you know, I think of Mr. Riley, that quirky billionaire, and I think of the Spellbinder. But this new book is, I'm getting back to nonfiction. It's part memoir. I'm sharing a lot of my story, including pictures and parts of my journal, and then ideas on leadership, productivity, creativity, and then I go to spirituality. So it's going to be a quirky, untraditional kind of a book.
And where can people find you today, Robert? What can we see your cooking lessons?
Oh, my cooking lessons, yeah. I'm working on my 𝗔𝗩𝗔𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏 these days, Peter. Another benefit of lockdown, if we're looking for the benefits. I'm on Instagram. It's just at Robin Sharma, 𝗟𝗔𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏.com. And anyone who wants, I don't know if you read my book, The Greatness Guide, but I'm giving away the audiobook, no charge whatsoever. So the complete audiobook, they just need to go to my profile on Instagram and click on the link, and they'll be able to get full access to the entire audiobook, no charge. Yeah, I have a podcast. It's called The Mastery Sessions. It's on YouTube. Very rich value. I don't even do ads. So that's, again, on YouTube. Just they can search The Mastery Sessions and Robin Sharma. And anyone who wants to read or get the 5 AM Club, they can, and I should mention at the end of the 5 AM Club, there's a 66-day video-based training program, no charge whatsoever. So they not only get the 5 AM Club, which, you know, so many people are finding transformational. Thank you, Peter. But they also get, any reader gets free access to the 66-day program. Again, the details are at the end of the 5 AM Club book. So the audiobook, which people are loving the audiobook, you can get it at Audible. And the 5 AM Club as a regular book is on Amazon and in bookstores around the world.
What is your handle on Instagram, Robin?
It's at robinsharma.com.
The incredible Robin Sharma. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for showing
Peter,
up.
it's been super real and super fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much.